So it's not just user interface, which people I think mistake it to.
That is so. You are either a genius or you've been researching a lot. I'm not sure.
I'm a genius idiot.
I don't believe that. The genius part, yes. So you're right that most people think UX is UI because that's what you see on the screen. So it's like, oh, well, that's the bit we see, so it must be the UX, right? But the truth is, you bring expectations into the game. So if you've played all these video games before and you play a new one, that comes with you, right? So your expectations of what that game will do is now changed compared to someone who hasn't played those games, right? You've got a different reference point. So that's user experience too. So it can't just be what's on the screen, because if it was just that, everybody would experience it the same. But that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. So you've got what you've done before, you've got your preferences and attitudes. What do you think of Mario? I hate Mario. That's hard to change, right? So it doesn't matter if Mario is the best game ever, or Zelda. If you don't like it, you're not going to play it, right? I just don't like those games.
I never met someone who said, I hate Mario.
That was a crazy thing to say, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't say that.
Apologize to me, apologize to one of the cameras.
People, everybody loves Mario. We know everyone loves Mario and Zelda. I was a strange hypothetical example.
But now you've offended people who hate Mario, so you're kind of,
That's what we do. That's what we do. That's okay. That's okay. But in a good way, I hope.
So yeah, what do you do exactly? So tell me, what games did you work on?
So I at the minute I'm a freelancer, but I had a company. I started in 2012, and I sold the company in 2016. So when I was with that company called Player Research, we worked on games like FIFA, or games, so games from Tencent, Arena of Valor, or games for Electronic Arts. These are some of the biggest games in the world. And we also worked on some smaller games, so mobile games as well, all the way down. So all platforms, all genres. The thing for us in my company is the people. So we were interested in studying the people playing the game, because that's how you make games better, but by doing some scientific process. I'm an ex-academic, so I was an associate professor in the UK. That was my job.
Associate professor in the United Kingdom. Oh my lord!
An Irish one as well, but yes. So we took what academia knew. We knew there was a process that products could go through that makes them more successful. And yet the video game industry was like, no, we're good. We don't mind, But they've got a very high failure rate. So I left that job in academia to bring that into the video game world.
So wait, in other words, you left teaching at a university for video games.
Who would have thought, right? Guess which job I'm happier in. Go on, guess. It's a tough, yeah.
You guys guess.
It's the second one. Yeah. So yes, that's what I did. And now I have a different role again because I have no company. I sold the company and now I'm a consultant.
So are you a gazillionaire?
I'm okay. I'm comfortable. Yes. So now I can do something else.
So you bought yourself a cool couch if you're comfortable.
And a rug, a nice rug.
Polar bear with the mouth open.
Can't commit. Maybe a tiger. Yeah.
Tiger Woods.
That sort of thing. You had to bring it back to games, right? So the work I do now is kind of, helping companies think player first. So I don't do the testing anymore, but I help game companies say, hey, the tech is really difficult. You should think about that. But I'm from the human side. Why would someone experience it this way? How can we be more successful by bringing the player into the game development process?
So at which point during the production of the development do you take over? And how much of it?
I start day one usually, so when they have an idea. So I help them figure out when, during the making of the game, can we start thinking about the player. So before they make their own game, often they look at previous games. So say you're going to make a PUBG clone or something like that. We should study what PUBG does well and where it's weak, and then we'll figure out, well, why are people happy with that game? Why are they not happy? We do the same I do the same with all the competitors. So you're putting a scientific structure in place to say, if you were going to take those guys on, what should you do? What should you focus on? And then during the making of that game, we apply a similar sort of process again. Let's bring people in, let's see what they like, what they don't like, and we do that all the way throughout development. And hopefully what comes out is a better version of, whatever you want to make.
So could you give me some practical examples of how you made a game from scratch, or an iteration of FIFA or Arena of Valor? How did you make it better?
Yeah, so the main thing, when you analyze game reviews, I'm sure your viewers will, they read these or watch YouTube comments. they often talk about the things they don't like or disappointed by or things they can't do or can't understand. So earlier I was saying, video games, it's not just this word fun that's tricky to measure. But when you read a game review, actually people are saying things like, hey, I don't know how that thing works, or I didn't even know that was available, or it's a bit difficult to use. So there are all the types of flavor and disappointment that exists in a video game, right? So the work I help games companies realize is, what if we could identify those, not in a game review once it's out, but during the making of the game. So if you can spot that, yeah, it's such an obvious thing, right? But they don't do it. Very few of them do it. They're like, hey, we made a thing, let's put it on the market. Oh, nobody likes the thing we made. Well, we'll get it right next time. It's like, okay, you can risk your $100 million doing that if you want. But a smarter way of doing the same thing is to involve the players and go through some, systematic process of identifying all those little things that are negatively impacting on your game. And if you do enough of that during development and then release it, you'll probably be more successful.
Yeah.
That's the sort of system you would go through over a long period, like years sometimes.
So, I don't know if you read the article from Jason Schreier from Kotaku about Anthem.
That was my talk.
Oh my God, I'm so sad I missed it. I also started reading his book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which is...
I love that book. He's got a second one coming as well. Sign up.
No way.
Yeah, just announced a few weeks ago. Sign up for it. Yeah.
So far, my favorite one was...
Gamer, by the way. I just realized you definitely are a gamer.
Sure, I'm a gamer.
Are you taking the piss out of my accent?
No, this is just how I do the Irish accent. I told you. It's going to come off as insulting, but I don't know, it's the only one I can do.
So that the Northern Irish accent is even odder again. Maybe it's not. Carry on. Gabriel, carry on.
You're a barrel of laughs, my friend.
You're about to say, so when you read the article,
Yeah, the Anthem one.
that's exactly what I try and help. What if all those issues, right? There was like 18 common issues in that game. Number one, we didn't know what we're making. You wouldn't believe it.
Until they sold the trailer.
Exactly. There's a games company that spent $100 million over 6 years, and they can't agree what they were making. You wouldn't believe that story. But yet, you read the story, and I read the story, and millions of others. That's exactly what happened. And it didn't go well,
Yeah, that's what I was going to, because that's a unfortunate, accident happening, whatever, right? But when it all goes well, how do you proceed? How do you take it from scratch till completion? When do you stop? When do you know when it's enough? When is it fun enough?
Yeah, so that systematic testing that I was telling you about, so it's called play testing in the games industry. Most of the larger companies, because it is relatively expensive to do, would bring in players during the making of the game. And when they think the numbers, or the data, let's say, it doesn't have to be a number, but when they think the numbers are good enough, like, hey, we brought these people in, and they seem to be playing the game the way we hoped they would play the game, we think this is good enough. So imagine we're playing, Anthem 2, and it's not out yet. It's going to be out in 3 years' time.
You heard it, everyone. Here, Anthem 2 confirmed.
I don't think we're going to see Anthem. Anyway, so imagine we were playing Anthem 2 3 years before release, and we're playing it and we think, man, this thing sucks, right? It's like, no, it's not ready for release. The point of that testing is to identify, well, why does it suck? Can we fix it? So you're meant to get better every single week you test it. You get better and better and better and better. And the graph I showed was from Destiny, for example. Destiny tested over a 4-year period. Every week, every month, let's say. And that went amazingly well, Destiny 1. That turned into a $1 billion franchise. So they were in a similar position to Anthem. Guys, we've got a big risk here. We're going to spend a ton of money over a long period of time to make a really amazing video game. We can't get it wrong. Okay, how do we not get it wrong? Well, we bring people in, we test every week, and we see if they're going to play it the way we hope they'll play it. And if they're not doing that, we will learn why, and we change it. And once they start playing the game the way we want, then we're ready for release. That is the smart, scientific way of going through game development. And yet, most games companies do not do this enough. They think, well, we like it. One of the comments in the Anthem article was the developer said, we thought we had a pretty good game.
Which version? With flying, without flying, with flying again, without flying again?
Right. Which version? And by the way, who cares what they think? It's not for them. If each developer is personally going to buy 1 million copies, awesome, carry on. You can play it yourself. But if you want to sell it to an audience who is not you, then you need to figure out what the player thinks.
So why do you think they do that? Is it greed? Is it ignorance? Is it both?
I think it's, yeah, partly lots of reasons. Could be ego, could be a lack of a thorough process. That it could be that somebody high up, as you saw in the Anthem article, somebody high up seems to override all the sensible data. Like the data might suggest, guys, the game isn't fun. And somebody else says, well, whatever. Hey, we've got a marketing slot. Or,
Hey man, what do you know? I'm your boss.
right, who knows? So you got all the data sitting there, and yet you have an organizational problem. Someone goes, well, we'll fix it. We'll get the feedback from the public, and then we'll make changes. Who knows? It's lots of problems. So it's hard to say one thing.
No, without giving out names or people or companies even, what was one crazy ass story you were part of? Something, totally ridiculous.
Nothing springs to mind. That sounds crazy. Nothing crazy springs to mind, I don't think. You put me on the spot there a little bit, I must say.
So maybe something different. Maybe what went so well you couldn't wait for the experience to repeat, and I don't know, another iteration of that game, for example. You said you worked on FIFA or Valor.
It's usually lots of small things. People often think it's one big thing that really turned a video game around, and in my experience, it's exactly the opposite. It's like whenever we were bringing the players in, it's hundreds of, or maybe tens at least, of many, many small issues. So it's not like, guys, change that one thing and cash will flow from the ceiling. It's like, no, you have to change many, many small things and nudge the player in the right direction. And that often surprised developers. And also there's a difference between, they read through the reports that we would send back, and then we go, oh yeah, we know this. It's like, yeah, but you didn't do it. Just because you know it, you didn't have to actually do it. And so they were just confusing between, oh, we thought that would be true, or we know these things, and yeah, but none of these are fixed in your game, right? So lots of those, that's the surprising thing, is that developers often want to rely on their experience. They think it's worth something, and often that harms them because they think, I've been in the industry 20 years, I know what I'm doing, I've made all these successful games. Well, if that worked, all these successful games companies would also have, hit after hit. And no, they don't. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, so sometimes you're saying that developers go so deep down the rabbit hole, they don't see the light from it.
We can't see it. It's one of the key problems, and the reason why you want to bring players in to play your game is because you cannot see it objectively anymore. You know how it works. You know how it was last week. You see it getting better, so you think, well, compared to last week, this game's really good. The players don't know what it was like last week. They just know today, this game sucks. So, or is amazing, that could happen. So developers have got all these sorts of biases, and it's hard to remove them. And the only way of doing it is to bring fresh players in every single time and figure out, does this player who's in our market, they're playing similar games, they like this sort of genre. Do they like it? That's what they should do.
Yeah, because it's kind of counterproductive because you're making a product. You want it to be awesome for people to buy it. Why wouldn't you, invest time and money into making it awesome? It just boggles the mind, right?
So when I was an academic and in university, that's what surprised me, is I was asking games companies, how do you know your game is going to be successful? And nobody could answer me. That's why I started a company. Because I also knew every single game has issues in it. Understanding, controls, feedback, user flow, just not fun, all these types of things. There's many more types. So I was like, wow, why don't you get rid of all these issues? It's preventable. You don't have to do this. Making games is difficult enough. All the technology and all the balancing and what style do we do it in? It's really, really difficult to make a game.
So things that relate to common sense, but they're not taken seriously? They're not even thought of, so...
Yep, that's exactly right.
That's what I was thinking lately, because I never heard about so much turmoil and so much illogical things in an industry than in the gaming industry. I mean, for God's sake, look at Anthem. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, and I showed a slide earlier of all the games companies that have went out of business in this year, in the last 12 months. And that's a long list of really previously successful people. So these companies have had success, they know what it's like, but they can't repeat it. And one of the reasons they can't repeat it is they don't know why they had it in the first place. Maybe they were lucky, right? The right game at the right time. Good for them. It works once. Try and do it again. We have no process. We don't know how to do it. So what happens? They go out of business.
Like Mirror's Edge, for example, the first one.
Didn't do too well either, right? So I think, yeah.
The first one was really appreciated by users, by gamers, but the second one, they did nothing.
Yeah, it didn't do anything. And even the first one was mixed. It was a good idea. It was novel. The first person, running and jumping, but there are things that have been tried by the games industry, and basically the games industry guesses a lot. They keep guessing because they say things like, well, we play games as game developers, so we know what people want. And that was maybe true in the 80s or 90s, where the person making the game and the person playing the game was really close, really close. But
It happens.
but today, it's very, very different, right? The word gamer is just, there's people who play games who don't even identify as gamers.
Yeah. I want to say that the gamer notion is slowly starting to get extinct because they're becoming people. Like everyone plays games now, even on mobile, which is hard for me to admit that that's gaming, but it is.
It is, right? You don't say, hey, are you a reader? Or if you watch books or read books, or, no one's ever.
Are you a movier?
Are you a movier? Are you a reader? Are you a listener? We don't say those things, but yet we say, are you a gamer, as if it's different than these other entertainment industries.
But are we losing our identity in the process?
I think that's a good thing, though. I mean, it's amazing how many people still think, when I say gamer to some people, mostly an older generation, or people who don't identify as gamers, they think Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, they think violence, they think shooting.
FIFA.
FIFA, maybe. But their first impression, for some people, is negative. Whereas if you read a book, they don't immediately talk about things you shouldn't read. We'll not go there. But, they don't think of that. Or they say, oh, you watch movies. Do you watch horror movies or whatever you shouldn't watch? It doesn't. But games does seem to attract that type of impression somehow. They're not aware of all the types of games that we have. Games for good, serious games, or citizen science, or all these sorts of things happen, and they don't talk about that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's why I love the gaming industry, because it's so diverse and it's always so complicated. Now we have cloud gaming and Project xCloud and Google Stadia. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
It's all coming. It's going to change again. I like all that. So gaming is going to be embedded in our lives in more ways.
Yeah, like everywhere, because if you remember last generation, when the entire hype between Xbox One and PlayStation 4 was created, consoles, everywhere, The Verge, Kotaku, Polygon, everyone, consoles are dying, consoles are dead, PlayStation is in the ground, and it didn't happen. In my opinion, that's what happens now. Consoles are not dying, they're just evolving. You're not limited to a box in your living room anymore, it's everywhere.
Yeah, there was even a comment today in the games press I was reading where someone at Xbox said, the next Xbox console, Xbox Scarlet, which was announced, last week, they said this is not the last one. Everyone said, oh, PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox, that's the end of it. And then the guy from Xbox came out and said, no, we're not going anywhere. Yet this is not the end of us. So there's more to come.
Especially now, because Phil Spencer doubled the F down on Microsoft, 13 studios, games. My producer is saying weird. If you were up to
games are too interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I would go on for days and days. So
what are you playing at the minute? What are you playing?
Now I'm not playing anything.
Come on, you need to make time.
I was playing Beat Saber on PlayStation 4. Frostpunk, I tried that. It was freaking awesome.
On PC? Yeah. I haven't played that. I bought that, but I haven't played it yet. Looks great.
It's really cool. So now I'm just I'm relaxing, not playing any games. Every year I have this period when I hardly play games, but then I do, I go.
Summer. It's called summer.
Yeah, no launches now, but in autumn, my God, if you're a viewer.
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend to people if they wanted to, go on this road of UX? How do you get started? How do you become a UX designer or consultant?
So design is different. A researcher, I can talk about myself. I had a long journey, So I was a university lecturer in human-computer interaction. It's basically the interface between the brain and the computer interface. So when you interact with something, what's going on? You have to process the information, you have to make decisions, you have to interact, all that stuff. So that's what I studied, was human-computer interaction.
Human-computer, that's huge. It's huge.
Too long to begin with. So HCI. So that's one area. So I'm a computer scientist specializing in HCI. Sorry to touch the mic. The other area that you can get expertise in is psychology. So, thank you. So most people in this area come from two main fields, human-computer interaction or psychology. And that's what they do.
Okay, let me translate now into layman's terms. You have to be a genius.
No. You have to have a bit of understand, a bit of education. That would help. But I honestly believe you can get into this without any formal education. I think as long as you're rigorous and like detail, you could easily pick up, some of the main principles and apply this in a games company. And I would argue that's what I want, because I've got a PhD in computer science, right? I don't think you need a PhD in computer science or HCI to do this job. Because there's only a very small number of people in the games industry with this job. It's in the hundreds, unbelievably small. What I want is every game studio to have someone like me doing this type of thing on their game. And for that to happen, it has to scale, right? You can't have everyone, all these eggheads, working on the game. So they need to learn the basics and do it good enough that will help the game. So don't worry about being a part-time genius or anything like that. Be passionate. Go and read some books like Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think, which is like an introductory text to this sort of weird area of video games or usability. And just start practicing, start analyzing, critiquing video games from the human perspective. That's it.
That was awesome. So see, that is why I love video games, and that's why this man loves video games as well. It's the most awesome industry on the planet.
Gabriel, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, man. Sweaty palms, but doesn't matter.
Cheers, all the best. Thanks for the Irish accent.